tech switches. We're going to be starting off the series on Tropical Sacrifice. And down here in the bottom left side, we have a player from Alpha X coming all the way from America. And of course, training in Korea recently. In the bottom left side, it is Astrea.
And up here in the top right-hand side of the map, a player undisputed to be of a world championship caliber level. We have from Dragon Phoenix Gaming, he is Dark.
You could see it in his prize money earnings and the stats before, but he has had such a career, making it to the World Championship Grand Final and giving Beyond an amazing run for his money back in 2016, but then finally holding up that trophy in 2019, being the BlizzCon champion there. And man, he's just been so consistent, so high level. And I love the confidence and the swagger that he brings. You know, there's other players like maybe Maru, a bit more unassuming. You know, he's kind of like, oh, you know, Dark, you feel his presence when he walks into a room. The man has confidence just seeping out of his pores. And he says it as well in his interviews. He always has. He's never held back. Had a few haters when he was first coming up because they were saying, who is this guy that's saying he's going to win GSL and he's better than everybody else? Well, no one's questioning that anymore. We know that he's an absolute champion through and through.
I think the thing that won me over really was Dark's Signature Series back in the day, the WCS Signature Series. If you haven't seen it, go give it a quick Google and YouTube it. It was really great because I think one thing that really stuck with me that Dark said was he doesn't want to be a champion. He wants to be remembered as one of the legends of StarCraft. He wants to be one of the Bonjos. He wants to be up there with names like Slayer's Boxer or Nada or MVP. He wants to be remembered as a player of that caliber, not just someone who won once. He wants to be the repeat dominating defender of a world championship title. So I love that kind of swagger and that confidence that Dark has, that desire to continue winning in that sense. I think it's going to be really, really fun to see how he does. Now, Astrea, on the other hand, we've also talked a lot about how he's that up-and-comer and everything. I would actually say, funny enough, even though he did come up during kind of, you know, the 2020, 2021 era of a lot of online events, Astrea actually, I would say, back in the day when we did have stuff in 2019 and whatnot, funny enough, he would actually perform better at a lot of the offline events. We had like the smaller lands, like Cheesadelphia or the DreamHack and stuff. That's when he would actually tend to perform better than he was at the time versus his online performances.
Yeah, I think he's got really good mental control. I don't know if it's, you know, growing up in California, but he's always meditating or like exercising, and I feel like he's always good at, you'll see him close his eyes and you can tell he's resetting in between games, losses or wins. He's very well planned and he's always at the cutting edge of the build orders. But let's talk more about the game so far. Dark has gone for a rather straightforward opening, just leaving one worker on gas. Nice quick ling speed into that third base, but a Void Ray first for Astrea. Now that is fascinating because we don't see Void Ray that often. It's very expensive, but it is going to shut down the Overlord vision and secure a very safe third base for himself.
Yeah, really good point. We typically do see the Oracles coming on out a lot more frequently these days for most Protoss players if they're going to go for the Stargate opening, but I don't hate it just because there is that sort of Overlord Peeper Cliff right by the natural where you can get a lot better scouting information. So the Void Ray being able to clean that up really does allow Astrea a little bit more of an opportunity to hide some of what he wants to do. There's going to be a second Overlord he can go for that's just south and to the right-hand side of his main base. We'll see if the Void Ray heads in that direction or if it's just going to be sticking around the third base first.
The moment he saw the Void Ray, Dark just made a decision, and that's to go Link Queen Nidus all in. He immediately dropped the lair the moment he saw that Void Ray, and he does this so regularly. He's going to go up to 2 gases, about 50 workers, and he is going to go for an all-in to start the series. This is a build that he started doing at the beginning of the Void Ray meta, and he still does it pretty much every single series. I mean, Astrea is a king of preparation. He knows this build. I guarantee you we can see that second gas going down now, but it's all about spotting the fact that it's coming. It's very hard to see because it looks like a kind of a normal build. Did he see the lair there? Oh, I didn't quite see it. That would have been a huge scout to see that that lair was already almost finished. As it is, it looks very normal. Part of the reason Dark builds so many drones with this build, even though he doesn't need it, is he just makes it look like he's building a big economy behind this Forge, Twilight, Robo, all going down. But if Astrea lets that Nidus go up in his main, it's game over real quick.
It's going to be so important for Astrea to be able to handle that. The Void Rake picked off one of the Overlords, but the other Overlord that's sitting by the main base is still ready and waiting. Going to be providing that vision. The oh my god, the Oracle came so close to also seeing it, at least even having some understanding or knowledge that that Overlord is over there.
Oh, he just saw the Nidus Swarm though with the Adept Shade. Huge there for Astrea. Hopefully he was looking at it and noticed. He's got to start making units right now. We don't really see any clear sign that he noticed what was happening. Oracle's coming in the backside. I think if he realized what this was, he would already be doing other things. He does reveal it, and he's got to set up for the defense. Baneliness going down. Dark is going all in on this. He wants to take the fight to the Protoss. He's already down on workers. The Void Ray's on top of the Nidus Worm. Astrea does start to track onto that, but the Ling's causing a ruckus.
Yeah, they are going to be taking out a couple of these workers. More Lings come streaming on forward. Going to try and take out any buildings that they can, just delaying things. But the Void Ray taking out that Night Storm is a really big win. Another Night Storm coming up further north. We see one of these Adepts getting focus fire down at that wall. And 3 Adepts now going to be trying to come in for the defense, but they just get surrounded and picked off. Now the third base seems like it's not going to have almost any defenses. The Void Ray does take care of the Overlord on the south side, and an Archon going to try and hold the line over here versus the Lings and the Queens.
Shield battery overcharge. The Lings there get us around though, and they do take it down. The Archon's cleared a lot of the Lings. Baneling's morphing on the base. The Void Ray comes down along with the Archon. There's a few gateways producing, but not that many. The Archon Zealot is going to try to get on top of those Queens, but that is a lot of transfused Spear Dragon.
It definitely is. A lot of the Lings have been taken care of, and another one of the Night Storms taken out as well. 7 Baneling's going to come rolling on forward, but they really want to connect on these Zealots. They're going to be able to find close to getting some connections. The Lings going for the wraparound, preventing units from getting up back to the high ground. The Photon Cannon coming into effect. The Immortal is going to get surrounded and picked off, and Dark gets into the natural.
Oh, Dark continues his just ridiculous streak of doing so much damage with this opening. The Queen's dropping tumors on that third. Astrea needs to keep that third alive. If he loses that, he's just going to be dead in the water. But if he can somehow save that third, maybe, just maybe, he has a way of keeping himself alive. The Queens, though, they're not going to let it happen.
Another Nidus Worm popping up in the main base. The Zealot Warpin is there, but the Nidus Worm is going to be able to finish up and unload a few units. Queen's starting to pop on out. Another one of these Nidus Worms also going to be popping on out. And that reduces Astrea's base count to effectively 1 potential mining base. That's it.
Well, he does immediately drop that third back up on the other base location very quick. He knows that at this point, Dark will be holding the worker key down. But, oh, it's not over just yet. He's actually going to pop out all these Queens. There's just not that much damage here for Astrea.
Yeah, there's no transfuses left over, but it looks like Astrea's not going to really be going after these units for too much longer. Another one of these Nidus Worms does finish up, but Astrea picks that off, keeps the Immortal and the Archons alive, which I think is definitely going to be extremely valuable. And like you said, another one of those expansions taken very quickly there for Astrea. With +1 weapons finished up and the fact that he's survived with some of his key units, you think that was a good enough defense?
This was the most clutch save it could have been from how bad that looked. The fact that he's rebuilt his third as quickly as he has, and that Dark didn't spot that. Because obviously Dark could have popped another Nidus and denied that. The Archons can't even move in and out of the base right now. He's got to wait for the Prism. So this is a very important move. Astrea realizes the situation he's in, and he realizes he's got to bounce back very quickly economically. This is an awful position to be in if you don't have the third as the Protoss, because the Zerg has so much freedom. Now, what I love, though, is that follow-up. That infestation fit, you know what Dark's going to do. He says, I've already got the Nidus Swarm from earlier. Why not go Nidus Swarm host? And this is going to be a great way to take advantage of the forward creep on the north. He can try to drop more Nidus Worms in the back of the main. He's still got tumors in the back of Astrea's main base, providing vision.
It's going to be so annoying. Astrea does have an observer, but he's using that to clean up the creep on the front side above his natural expansion before really heading over to the main base to clean up that creep spread. So
the creep is still spreading in his main as well, by the way.
That's so annoying. But thankfully, you know, it's not a Terran that needs to use multiple scans as the creep gets further out. The observer will still be able to handle that and clean things up. Now, Warp Prism making his way over into the main base with the charge lots as he unloads over here. He's going to realize, yeah, Dark is ultra prepared for that.
All right, the first Nidus Swarm host wave's about to come on in here. Astrea, it looks like he's about to get back on his feet, but he's going to hear that screech, and his heart is going to sink. He's going to realize what he's up against very quickly as those Locusts are about to launch into his natural. Roachling on the front, looking to support this push as well. He's going to go straight for the Nexus Snipe there. I don't think there's a battery. There's nothing to help keep that alive.
Yeah, nice snipe up on that other Nidus Worm that's coming on up, and the Photon Cannon plus the Zealots are going to try and reduce the Locust count. Is he actually going to be able to save this?
Wow.
I'm still a little bit fearful about a second wave over there, especially as the Nidus Worm, I think, is still just getting taken out, but a target for sure that Dark is going to be eyeing later. But nice job by Astrea to clean up that Nidus Worm, prevent the easy second round of Locust from coming out.
Yep, extra Nidus Worm does pop on the north, just out here as this one tries to go down. Yeah, it's just endless Nidus Worms. He knows the more angles he creates, the harder it's going to be for Dark to Astrea to hang on. Astrea, though, his supply is climbing. This next Nidus wave, though, uh-oh, those Swarm hosts gonna throw their babies into action like the savages they are.
Yeah, those Swarmos Locusts are going to be heading over to that third base. The Archons and everything else already evacuated. The Shield Battery Overcharge is going to try and buy a little bit of time, but I don't think that's going to be enough. Even with the Storm coming on out, just a little bit too much damage output, and this puts Astrea in a really tough spot because now he needs to get something done. He is on a 2-base economy. I feel like that's even being a little bit too generous. It's a 1.5 base economy.
Yeah, whereas Dark is, of course, just got the third and the fourth up and running. He's only on 63 workers. But when you're keeping the Protoss this small, you don't need any more than that. The Hive Lurker Viper transition is on the way for Dark, so he doesn't need to win with just Roaches and Swarm hosts. He's got the next step. Astrea's supply is climbing. He does have chances to win this game, but it's definitely looking like it's going to be very difficult. Roaches in the north and the south and the Swarm host coming in all at once.
Archons and plus Storm is going to be able to actually mitigate a lot of the Locust wave over there, but on the north side, the Roaches canceling one of the Nexus, the other Roaches hitting the third base location that is still trying to build, and well, Astraea's going to be able to at least deal with that. Some magnificent Storm's going to be able to take care of quite a bit of that, but remember, High Templar Storm Energy is a big resource he needs to actually help deal with the Locust waves as well.
Yeah, and remember he lost 3 High Templar in the previous Locust waves, so Astrea, he's just being bled out here. Dark getting too much momentum with that first big Nidus Worm Queen attack. Astrea's done a great job of hanging on. I think he's showing his caliber, showing that he can take a punch unlike any other Protoss player, but there just hasn't been a chance to throw anything back in Dark's direction.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate too because Astrea has been trying, right? He's been trying to go for these Warp Prism Zealot run-bys. None of them have really been working out. Dark has been so on point at having a defensive setup with a style that oftentimes really lacks in the defense when you're going for these Swarmos Locust waves. A great defense over there, ensuring that those Locusts did absolutely nothing, but Dark continues to defend. Is continuing to just pile on little bits and pieces of aggression while just out expanding Astrea, and that is the big problem. Astrea still very far away from a max out point where he could really hit some kind of big timing or something.
Yeah, he's being bled out little by little. If the army doesn't take damage, it's okay, right? You can lose a Nexus, lose some probes. Eventually, you get a big 100 supply army and you win the game with it. He's not able to get there right now, sitting at about 63 army supply up against 120 of Dark. Dark's got Lurkers. They've got Hive Tech upgrades as well. The defense of the Warp Prism and the Zealot multi-prong has been so on point. Dark's multitasking just out of this world. He never, ever is surprised by this Zealot drop.
It's unbelievably impressive how on point Dark is about defending any of these potential counterattacks. It's almost kind of reminds me of what DeMuslim was saying. Even though Astrea is losing, he's looking good doing it, but Dark definitely looks better as he deflects all the aggression from Astrea and continues to put on his own offense, continuing to just ensure Astrea is not able to get up a fourth base. And that fourth base is the big problem here. Astrea is finally maybe seeing that this is just go time. He's maybe just going to be ignoring any future Nidus Storms and saying, I need to do something now because it's only going to get worse from here. And he'd be right, but has it already been too late? Has too much time already passed?
Yeah, Lurkers with Seismic Spines. Actually, they don't have Seismic Spines. They don't have the range upgrade. Big misstep from Dark. He's only got the speed upgrade. But look at that. He's forcing Astrea all in into Lurkers. A terrible situation to be in as the Protoss. Having to smash through Lurker Spinecrawler is near impossible.
Yeah, this is especially tough when I don't really see a whole lot of detection around both sides of the army, but we see Storms coming on out. Astrea is honestly taking some pretty decent trades in the overall sense, but unfortunately he just has so much lower army supply that it's not enough. He's getting outnumbered, he's getting outclassed, and he's down to half the supply of Dark. Man or Nidus Worm comes up to try and force field in Astrea's army to make matters worse.
Yeah, I mean, he could always use that to bring the Swarm hosts home and pop them out in the battle and help out on the defense. But a successful hold it is. Now, yeah, Dark's losing workers in the main, so his economy's getting low, but he's still got a giant army, including Lurkers and Swarm hosts. Astrea has Dregs right now, a couple of Zealots, a Warp Prism. He's got a single Immortal and a High Templar in production. But I mean, he's got no economy, he's got no production. And it's just a great fight from Astrea, but we're watching a guy who's been fighting one-handed for the last 10 minutes. Ever since that third went down, Dark has been large and in charge.
Yeah, if this is basically the unarmed man trying to fight against a mecha machine, and it's really, really impressive that he was able to unscrew one of the arms on the mecha machine, but the mecha machine still carries on, and is going to be able to take care of business here. It seems like, man, Dark, this style was just, it was such a great follow-up from the kind of start that he had earlier on. You were talking about how this was just the classic reaction from Dark when a Protoss player is going for that first Void Ray. I really, really wonder how this is also going to affect the rest of the series, if this is going to change a bit of what Astrea is going to be thinking if he tries to open up Stargate again with a Void Ray.
Yeah, and the thing is that Astrea was specifically trying to have the safest, most solid opening, where he wanted to avoid. He knows that Dark might just make 50 Zerglings, make 20 Banelings, and try to smash your head in. He knows that he might throw these sort of builds out. He was doing something where he was specifically like, I'm going to play really defensive, I'm going to block your move, and I'm going to like beat you in the mid to late game.
Yeah.
It didn't go his way. I don't think it changes his strategy, but it may affect his confidence. And this is the problem with playing against Dark, dude. He is so unpredictable. He throws out the dirty all-ins. He could Ling Flood and pull the drones for a drone drill. He might do that in the next game, or he could just play a big old macro game. But no matter what, he's so effective at killing players. He's unpredictable, keeps you guessing. And Astrea, he's going to have to be on his toes in this series. I like that he's still fighting here.
Yeah.
You can see just how methodical Dark is. He's not going to give him a chance to get back in this. No way.
Yeah. Of course, this is going to be a nigh impossible situation for Astrea to come back from, but I think, he lives up to his name of Max Angel. He sounds like he's some kind of superhero from Die Hard or something, and he really does just fight it out to the bitter end to see if there's any chance of coming back against his opponent, but it is going to be extremely tough against someone like Dark. And, well, there it is. GG. Dark takes the first map.
The old Ling Queen Nidus does it again. And he's been bringing this out so much. And it's so funny because you see the Protoss players and they say, on paper, this shouldn't work that much. It really shouldn't. But that's what a lot of Dark's play is based around tiny nuances and details. Like, so many times he's caught people with a random Ling Bane bust when they've got 3 Oracles out, which should counter it. But he's just an expert at skirting around the vision, right? And the Oracles, he waits for them to dive a mineral line, and then bam, there's Banelings and Zerglings at his base. It's always, he works around what the Protoss can see, what they can't see, hides information very well, and he keeps that unpredictable nature. So a great start to the series, but it is a best of 5, so it's going to take, of course, 3 wins to knock out the American player.
Yeah, and important to note, this is also the first map choice for Dark himself, so this was the map that he said, okay, if both players veto one map, what's the best map he has the best chance of winning on? Because that's the way you usually do your picks. You want your best maps to come first, because those are guaranteed to be played. And this was the map he ends up winning. So Astrea is going to get his version of that. He's going to get to go to his most comfortable map of the maps that are left from after the vetoes. And I'm interested to see where that's actually going to take us. But that's also going to be a big opportunity for Astrea to try and strike back a little bit. I love what you were talking about, though. Dark is scary because he can just throw out anything. You can go to your map pick. You can have your game plan, which Astrea very much so is a game plan kind of player. But at the end of the day, Dark can always mess with your game plan. He can throw it off entirely.
And it comes at a cost, don't get me wrong. I mean, for those who are just watching Dark for the first time, I doubt there's that many of them since we get to see him in all the big events. But you might not realize, we talk a bit about how Dark's openings are kind of unrefined for a player of his, world champion caliber. So sometimes his openings are a little sloppy. Sometimes he goes for these weird aggressive attacks. They don't pan out. But the thing is, it's not just the crazy attacks. It's the fact that he can play from way behind and drag his way back in. Incredible comebacks. I think Raynor is close to Dark in that regard, but I don't think he's as good as Dark at making comebacks. I think Dark is just the most wizard player from he's basically dead. The Protoss has Carriers, Storm, Immortals, Disruptors, every capital ship and unit in the game. He's got Ravagers and an Infestor and he wins the fight. You're like, how do you do this so often? He's hard to put in the ground. He's unpredictable. He's a problem. And we're going to see if Max Angel can solve it today, mate.
Yeah, man, you're reminding me of some of the old games I've seen Dark play where he's down 70 supply, just carries it out to a 50-minute game and comes back. But here we go, guys. We're going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand side of the map, atop of the red Protoss player from North America and Alpha X. He is Astrea.
And his opponent in the top left side of Moondance, representing Dragons, Phoenix, and Gaming, it is Dark. An absolutely elite tier gamer. He has built such a legacy for himself. He's nearing on that $1 million in prize money earned. And just an absolute beast here. He'll be starting out this series, getting his natural blocked. He's going to move out and take that third base at the front, not opting for the 3/4 base in the back, of course.
Yeah, probably not an ideal one to take super duper early on, just because it does have fewer resources, fewer gas and everything. But well, again, this is the map choice for Astrea, and I can see a lot of potential. I looked at this map, Pig, and my first thought was there are so many fun things you could do with that in-base natural that has one less gas geyser and 6 mineral patches, especially as a Protoss player. And I was thinking about PvZ attacks and all-ins where maybe you want to have a little bit of extra economy, you want to hit a slightly stronger timing or a potential transition, but you don't necessarily need the second gas geyser, you don't necessarily need all the mineral patches. And I'm really itching to see what someone like Astrea comes up with, because I think that's one of Astrea's strong suits, is coming up with custom tailored builds.
Dude, a couple of years ago when he first went to GSL, he went third base at 2 minutes 30 versus Impact on Eternal Empire. We were like, what? You can't do that versus Zerg.
That's illegal.
And he won the game. He looked great doing it. He's a big improviser and creator of these builds. So I expect him to play ground here. I actually don't think he'll play Stargate, so he can take a really quick third, probably get some sentries out for hallucinations to scout, and go straight into Blink Stalkers is what I'd expect from Astrea, because he was doing this well before we saw this Blink Stalker, meta happening.
Right.
I know he's so good at that sort of style of actually playing ground, skipping the Stargate, and he normally does it with like Nexus first. We saw him do that a lot on Blackburn, for instance, in the previous map pool. This time around, he's actually going straight Twilight, so it looks like it might be a Glaive Adept opening.
Oh, this is going to be super interesting to see how it plays out. He's also going to get up that first Stalker, which should be very helpful for trying to push back the Overlord, try and keep this somewhat more hidden, or at least confirmed for Dark on whether or not this is going to be the case. But Dark sees the Twilight Council and backs on up for now.
Yeah, I think he'll still lose the Overlord, but ooh, Adept not able to get the Creep Tumor. Nice micro here from Dark. Adept has to get out of there. And I do wonder, because this is meant to be the shortest rush distance, right? In the entire map pool is Moondance. And that third base is also sticking out like a sore thumb. So definitely could imagine a very powerful Glaive Adept attack hitting. And just the fact that there's so much distance between the bases is going to make the Adept Shades even more frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, big thing we're going to be keeping an eye out for also is just how many of these gateways Astrea is going to be committing to with this. There is Resonating Glaives being researched from that Twilight Council, being chronobusted out. 2 gateways being added on top of the 1 that is already out. So that's bringing him up to 3, and there's the 4th gateway being added on.
Dark's going for a Baneling Nest. Is he doing a Baneling bus of 29? Yeah, he's just holding the Zergling key down Fear Dragon. This is such a crazy strategy, but I think he sees that pylon is so close to the front of the wall, he can blow that pylon up as well as kill the Stalker. Now, he's also maybe going to wait for Astrea to move out with the Adepts. He says, you're going to move out, I'm going to bust your wall, and then what are you going to do? Right, he realizes that with a Twilight build, you don't have a lot of vision. You don't have a lot of flexibility. He is going to show some Zerglings very early, though.
Oh, we're going to have to see if Astrea is going to react to that. He sends these Adepts over in that direction. He's going to see the Banelings morphing in. This is a massive revelation here for Astrea. Dark moving into the camera, not super happy about being found out, but he gets us around a couple of the Adepts. The Adepts already shaded back. A full wall up comes here for Astrea, and Astrea, who was ready to go for a big committed attack, now realizes he's actually in the economic advantageous position. He's just going to try and defend now.
I don't speak Korean, Fear Dragon, but I'm pretty sure I just saw a word that Parting used to say a lot on his stream, echoed on Dark's lips there by the looks of it. So maybe a bit of a naughty word in Korean. He did look a little frustrated. However, of course, always able to be flexible, pulls back, drones up. And I do think he was waiting for Astrea to go across the map. But Astrea, he realizes the opponent he's up against, and he actually checked, split his Adepts up, he fanned them out, finds those Banelings, and I think Dark realizing, come on, man, I should have just morphed the Banelings a bit further back. That was way too greedy, so a little annoyed at himself there.
And this is, again, where the new maps really come into effect. You talk about this situation on most other maps, and you say, okay, well, now the Protoss player has to make this awkward choice. If they want to establish a third base, they still have to secure outside of that wall in. This base, or this map, you can just go for the in-base natural. It's got a little bit less income. but you can safely take that as you get up the tech you need to defend against any kind of massive Ling swell.
5 drones already, very nice damage. And as long as he spreads out, Banelings aren't effective against spread out Adepts. So you can see the way he's trying to bait the Lingbane into a big spread there at the Adepts, playing as if they're Marines almost. The Banelings are going to start trickling in. Oh, a bit sloppy on the micro there from Astrea, letting those Adepts clump up. But still so many more Adepts behind that. The Lings are not effective units in this situation.
This is going to be really, really brutal over here. We have a couple more Adepts being warped in, but rest of the Adepts do get cleaned on up. That is, again, forcing out a lot of Lings and an entire second round of those Banelings being made for Dark. So you can see his worker count is still not very healthy right now. Astrea has a robotics bay coming up behind this and a third base finish up. He's making 3 workers at a time and also still continuing to find some damage with these Adepts. So I would say, still at the end of the day, Astrea's going to be pretty happy with how this attack has gone.
Right now, I feel like Dark is wanting Astrea to overcommit just a little more so he can counterattack. But Dark's realizing, man, I don't really know if that opportunity is going to present itself, so he's adding the drones, trying to recover the economy. But being down 10 workers, 3 base versus 3 base, not looking good for Dark. Astrea is adding such good tech, right? The Robo Bay, whether it be Colossus for the Zerglings, more likely Disruptors to deal with the Roaches and Banelings, that's going to be such a good piece of tech to add the splash damage. He's still got this Prism being such a nuisance in the main.
Yeah, this is going to be so annoying, especially after sniping off a couple of those Queens during the earlier fights. It's just a little bit less anti-air to actually help deal with this. There's only 2 Queens out of the map right now. 2 more about to pop in a few moments' time. That will help deal with that Warp Prism, but Astrea just buys so much space with these Adepts. Might finally be losing them. Nope, a hot pickup saves both those Adepts. And again, is getting up all the tech he wants behind this. First Disruptor about to pop.
Yeah, this is definitely a big advantage for Astrea. Now, remember, I would say if there's a weakness of Astrea, it's kind of utilizing his lead to really push his opponent out of the game. He's good at using his lead to get further ahead, but I have seen Dark make so many miracle comebacks, especially in this matchup, that I'm looking at this, if there's any other Zerg sitting there facing off against Astrea with a lair not finished at 8 minutes, you know, down in workers, down in just about everything. There's Disruptors versus unupgraded Roachling. I'd be like, you're dead. I look at it with Dark, and there's that special characteristic to Dark where we go, yeah, you've still got a lot of work to do to finish him off, Astrea.
I totally agree. I actually think if I had to categorize Astrea as a player, he's also someone who's good at making comebacks from behind, but that means that he's also not great at closing out games. I feel like Dark is a player that is good at making comebacks from behind, but he's also good at closing out the game.
Oh, he's good at just punching the other guy. Yeah, like, you know, he doesn't overcomplicate it. Sometimes he just goes for the kill. Good save on the Prism there, keeps it alive. Overall, 4 Adepts going down for 8 drones. It's, you know, cost for cost, not amazing for Astrea, but you're putting Dark's weak economy into a weaker position. You're up on 74 probes. Your 4th base is getting fully established. Great position for Astrea. Blinkstalker Disruptor count is growing. I wouldn't mind seeing a second Robo added in here, and I was about to say, getting a Colossus, even just one, so powerful against the Zerglings that otherwise excel against Disruptor Stalker.
Yeah, just being able to mitigate a bit of those Lings pouncing on your army is extremely helpful, and it's going to complement the Disruptors and everything else in this army for Astrea really, really well. Observer's going to be getting a nice little scout on the main base. Is he going to be able to see the infestation pit? Where is that actually coming down right now?
Yeah, he went right past it. That was it right there. So he sees it, but doesn't really know what that means in the context of this game. Could be Swarm Host 90s again. Very likely to just be Hive, and of course Lurker Tech coming out. Dark, a big fan of trying to turtle up with the Roach Hydra Lurker, get the Vipers out, survive, and then try to do some sort of counter-aggression. Astrea going to drop that Dark Shrine, one of the few players who uses aggressive DT Blink in this matchup.
Yep.
He does have nightmares of the time he threw away 132 of them against Scarlet in that one game in the NA Finals. But other than that, he's made it look really good in the past, so we'll see exactly what he could do with it. I like that the move out is now coming for Astrea. He's still up in the workers. He's got a pretty good push here. I'm not sure if there's a Warp Prism.
Oh, great Disruptor connection on a lot of those Banelings. Picks off the remainder of them. More Stalkers coming in for the right-hand side. And the Colossus, they're getting a little bit low, but they manage to both survive. And we start to see Astrea pushing on forward, climbing up in supply. There it is, GG. Astrea evens up the series 1-1.
Nice to see the American player there, not just going to get caught off guard 2 games in a row. That was a really tricksy, dirty build that his opponent tried to pull on him. That's something that you will see a semi-pro do to try and beat a world championship player. That's what makes Dark so dangerous. He sometimes he's able to put himself in like, what is a really dirty trick I can pull? You know what? wait till your Adepts move out. Because Glaive Adepts, they smash a Ling Bane all in, but he knows that there's no scouting with it. So he's, I'll wait for you to leave, we'll slide in there, get an easy win, and get the 2-0 advantage. But good defensive scouting there for Astrea. Really responsible of him to fan those Adepts out. Delayed his initial Adept push, finds the all-in, and those sort of details are what you need against a tricky guy like Dark.
I think that is one of the things, to me, that always made Dark the player that I feel like was so good at slaying the non-Koreans, is that if I had to categorize what it probably feels like to play versus Dark, it's unforgiving. You have to just be on point with everything, because Dark will always find the one little weakness, the one little thing that you skimped on, the one small little detail that you forgot to check for, and that's what he'll kill you with. And really, really great job in that last game, like you were saying, with Astrea being able to just pounce on that one little detail and making sure he was staying on point with every little thing to keep up with all of the different kind of follow-ups and weirdness that Dark was trying to throw at him.
Yeah, really well done. I like the blink forward here as well. Dark was trying to kind of, pull a fast one in there, focus down the Disruptors and the Colossus, but Astrea realized, hey, I've got the numbers here. I've built a good advantage. As long as I keep those power units alive, I can just use my Stalkers like a force field, jump on top, and take that fight. So not getting bullied out of that one. I like to see this series go the distance. I'm hoping for a 3-2. I'm such a fan of both of these players. You know, me and you are some of the biggest Astrea fans out there, because we've seen his rise to prominence and how creative he is, but I mean, Dark, there's memes about how excited I get about Dark games, mate. So I don't even know who I want to win this one. I just know I want to see more games, more strategy, and see how they adapt and adjust, because it's not going to be the same thing over and over. They're both way too intelligent for that. Let's introduce our player in the top left side. He does equalize the series 1-1, representing Alpha X. This is Astrea.
And at the bottom right-hand side of the map, a master with so many tricks up his sleeves. He is the blue Zerg from Dragon Phoenix Gaming, Dark. Well, we managed to see a tied-up series 1-1 like we were talking about. Both of these players winning on their own map choices. We now head to Dark's, second map choice pick. And I want to say that this is a very different map from the last one. There's a lot of things that Astrea was able to do, such as doing the full wall, but still taking a third base behind it because he had an in-base natural. Being able to make a lot of those kind of safer choices on that map, not something that's going to be really as possible on a lot of the other maps, including here we have Cosmic Sapphire.
Cosmic Sapphire, yeah, very big map. And that ramp outside your natural, it is kind of hard to get out to your third base to defend, and definitely we've seen Dark's aggressive nature, so he could take advantage of it. As you go on this map, once you get to like 5 bases and then 6 bases, you get really spread out. Like, you've got so much, because you're both expanding across kind of the longest dimension, which is the diagonal from bottom left to top right. Your middle bases that you go for are just sticking out. They're so hard to defend. The gold base in the very bottom left is super exposed. If anyone takes that, it'll likely be Dark. But double gate after Nexus first is always very cool. So Astrea, going back to that Nexus first opening, he is an expert at this. Usually opens up with a couple of Adepts, but sometimes he just goes straight sentries here as well. And he's really good at just keeping the economy larger than the Zerg opponent. So Dark, a player who we've sometimes criticized for being a bit inefficient in the opening, I've got my eyes glued to that drone count, because Astrea might get like a 10-15 worker lead very early in this game if Dark doesn't watch out.
Yeah, it's hard to remember when you see all of these kind of weird moves and stuff that Dark does, but sometimes it does come at a cost. The reason why standard is standard is because it is typically a little bit safer against a large variety of things. When Dark kind of goes off the beaten path and does things that are a little bit riskier, it does come at a cost. And yeah, that sometimes means that he's cutting corners in places where maybe he's not as prepared for 2 Adepts to come in from this kind of 2-gate opening. But of course, the Overlord does scout this out, so Dark has some time to react to this. He shouldn't be totally unprepared, but it is going to be about how well he handles the small little details of this defense.
The Adepts fanning out, making sure there's no Zerglings too close. But despite that, Dark Zerglings should be able to get in there. The Adepts are shading across. 8 more Zerglings on the way. Oh, very nice. Well prepared. Astrea denying the scout. And of course, that way Dark can't see the tech coming in behind it. Hint, hint, there is no tech because he's just building sentries and stalkers and probing up. It's a nice greedy opening. Look at the worker advantage though. Already 8 workers ahead for Astrea. Ooh.
A recall coming out, saves one Adept after picking off 2 of those drones. He also managed to pick off just actually the drones, just the 2 drones for 1 Adept. So it's a little bit of damage. I guess he confirms a little bit of scouting information on kind of what Dark had, but not a whole lot happening there.
Easy there, Astrea apologist. That was not great.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it was not terrible, right? Because he's already ahead on the workers. I mean, he's got that 10 worker advantage we were talking about, and he does keep one of the Adepts alive for future. The big problem with this build for Astrea is his tech so late, right?
Yeah.
He's got his Twilight just started. Third goes down here pre-4 minutes. So he's got a very just nice chunk of units out. Dark holding the Zergling key down and going melee. Ooh, okay. Wow, what the heck? Dark is just going to Link Flood this third. And you know what? Astrea's only got 2 gateways, but he sees Links popping out. He sees no drones on the third. Astrea needs to realize what's happening. I think he saw the more Zerglings coming out. He needs batteries. He needs those Adepts. Get in the choke point right now, Astrea, or you're going to get overrun, mate.
Okay, he managed to get someone into that choke point, and the natural expansion also pretty well defended. He has 2 Adepts on the outside of the wall, unfortunately, for Astrea. He is going to end up losing one of them. Dark has picked his target, and it is going to be the natural. The third
Don't
base,
get baited out, mate.
the Adepts, they're heading on out, but more Links are coming out.
Moving those Adepts was a big mistake there for Astrea. He had to stay in that third base. He's still warping in Adepts 2 at a time. His natural wall is solid right now. And I don't think this was enough damage for Dark. Remember, he's at 30 drones right now. He's trying to drone up behind this, but this was a massive commitment. He has not been able to cancel that third base. He still might be able to go on it now because he's got so many Zerglings. And I think he's got to kill that third. I think he has to commit to it. He can't let this stay up.
There's no way. A couple of Adepts are going to get caught as they were trying to move over to the third base location, but Shield Battery Overcharge is going to put a hard no on this attack, being able to do a whole lot over at that third base. We had Charge being started up, canceled. Blink being started up, canceled. As now Resident Glaives comes out after he sees how many more Lings Dark has made. It looks like Astrea is going to be putting pedal to the metal on Adepts for a bit of the rest of this game.
I think that's an okay choice here. It's weird. Part of me, it makes me a bit nervous that he was indecisive there, Ravi, but I think it is actually going to work out okay. 5 more gateways on the way. Massling Bane coming in. Dark is just going for broke. Melee is about to kick in. A lot of Banelings, and if those Adepts aren't spread out, the Banelings are going to wreck him. If they're spread out, the Zerglings are going to wreck him. Huge problem for Astrea. Dark, pedal to the metal, non-stop aggression here, and the probes have nowhere to go. What's he gonna do?
Oh, probes going down, and now we have the shield battery in the far back somehow, managing to keep a couple of these Adepts alive. Shield battery overcharge off of cooldown yet again. Banelings looking for a target. A force field comes out of nowhere. The shield battery overcharge gonna get depowered. The Lings starting to overpower the Adepts, and suddenly it seems like Dark may have broken through at this third base.
More Zerglings than you have ever seen, mate. Enough to blot out the sun. Astrea, it looks like his economy's getting massacred, and yet he's still up 15 workers, Spear Drag.
Oh my God.
That is how ridiculously committed this was. It's finding the damage, though. The extra gateways have now kicked in. If Astrea can retake this third, he can still be okay. But he's got to stop this flow, and he's got to do it right now.
One Baneling taking out 3 of these Adepts. Resident Glaive Adepts trying to take out the Lings before they can snipe off the third, but he will not be able to save that. The probes are going to have to retreat back to the natural, and Dark finally retreats back, makes 5 more workers, adds on a Roach Warren, but this was so committed. Dark does not have a lair, and we are at 7 minutes. Pig, was it enough damage just to kill the third?
Can we see the units lost trade? Because I feel like Dark actually traded quite well considering. You can see that he's actually traded efficiently, and that's what gives him the advantage, is he's still got a massive Zergling count on the map, and Astrea not leaving enough Adepts here. Okay, he does have 4 on the bottom. He should be able to keep that base alive. With Glaives now up, the Lings are going to trade much worse.
Yeah, positioning there for those Resident Glaive Adepts a little bit too good. At the same time, the Prism across the map, not going to be able to do a whole lot of damage, but he keeps the Prism alive, and it looks like he might be able to keep, no, neither of those Adepts alive, but Prism staying healthy is still going to be a threat out on the map. Dark still down about 9 workers, even as he continues to try and flood out more workers. Astrea is also getting up his transition points with the Templar Archives being added on, and the third nearly finished back up.
I mean, right now, there's a clear mission, right? Dark wants to drag Astrea into the mud pit. He says, let's go for a mud wrestle, mate. He's trying to make this as messy as possible. Astrea's trying to keep himself clean. He's trying to keep his suit clean. He says, this is my Sunday finest, mate. Let's get back to a nice, clean match where I can use my macro, use that power. I've got my third rebuilt. I'm adding Templar Archives, Robo Bait, I'm probing up. I want to take a 4th base behind this. Dark, his work account is not good. And weirdly enough, he's going some roaches, some zerglings, some drones. Some roaches, some drones. Ooh, good pick-off, good pick-off.
That is a beautiful pick-off there for Dark. He's going to be losing maybe 3 or 4 workers over here, but absolutely worthwhile. Even transfuses the drones getting attacked. Says, no. 3 is all you get. 3 is all you get.
Yep, he's got plenty of energy to spare, so saves an extra drone there. Nicely done by Dark. Dark's economy not great. His army count is huge though. So he's got, when Roach Speed and +1 finishes in, I feel like he's going to want to look to go forward. Astrea, a man who loves his economy, is no doubt going to look for a 4th base. And look at the spread on this setup. I imagine Dark's going to split his army, hit the natural with half of it, and hit the 4th with the other half. How do you spread your army to defend both those angles? Astrea is going to need to be very tight to hang on. That being said, the fact that he's been up on workers for so long, it does really look good in that regard for Astrea.
Yeah, Astrea's had a lot of time to capitalize on that worker count. He's been able to get up his tech to both the Archons and the Disruptors while also now adding on his Forge. What's kind of interesting thing that I feel like is pretty rare to see in these kind of stages of PvZ is a Protoss player that's got up to Archons and also Disruptors, but is basically still just on mostly Resonant Glaive Adepts. He doesn't really have Charge Fit. He's going to be finishing up soon, as a 4th base getting canceled over here is a nice pick-off there for Dark, but it's going to... It kind of feels like Astrea is still getting his transition set up as Dark is doing his big move out here.
I can't believe Dark's dropping a Spire right now. He's thinking about a dirty Mutalisk swap. You know what? It's not effective if your opponent knows about it at all. At this stage of the game, it's so bad. What's good though, he's not going to expect it. Who the heck goes for Spire this late? So Dark is just going to be sitting on that and waiting for it. And if he can clear out enough of the units, get Astrea stuck on mostly safe. A couple of Archons, Disruptors, Immortals, nothing that really shoots up in a mobile fashion. A Mutalisk swap could be absolutely deadly.
That is a really, really scary thought as the Spire is getting close to finishing up. I see about 800 gas in the bank right now. And the Lings preventing Astrea from doing any kind of potential move out in the immediate future. He knows that this army for Dark is out on the map, so you don't want to just, you know, throw caution to the wind and start charging on forward out. You got to defend your bases. So Dark has bought himself both the time and the space and also saved up the resources to go for this big Muta tech switch against a Protoss player who doesn't have a Stargate, doesn't have Blink yet. It looks like he actually might have Blink just barely in the nick of time for the Mutas, maybe? Ugh, this is gonna get rough.
Yeah, these Mutas, it's a nasty move because Astrea, he's pinned back by the army superiority. Dark has not got an economic advantage. He doesn't have a super long-term advantage, but what he does is he's limited Astrea's vision, his information about what's going on in the game, and he's using that to his advantage. The Prism does come in the backside, purposely hiding the Mutas though. Very good play there by Dark. It's gonna be a bit of a Zealot warp in the main.
Oh, so close to spotting out the Spire, even a few seconds earlier, but there are the Mutas revealing the Spire, and, well, the Mutas are actually going to pull back, so these charge lots, while they are not going to get a lot of damage done, they do their job in the sense that they buy some time, and they even manage to get a cancel out on one of those hatcheries.
Indeed. You know what? Setting off a lot of the Banelings as well. Adepts are going to shade in, take out a few of these drones. A lot of Queens going down. Not bad damage for Astrea, and buying himself time, as you so pointed out. Obviously, it's going to be lots of Blink Stalkers coming in, cannons and batteries to try and defend 13 Mutas. If they run into a few cannons and a battery, not all that great at smashing through it. But look at the spread of units. Ling Bane in the top right, Mutas moving through the center, Ling Roach Baneling on the bottom. Dark is looking for weakness, and Astrea way down on supply right now.
Yeah, just having a shield battery or two or a couple of Stalkers is not always enough to protect your units. A Disruptor goes down, the wall-in is now open. The Archons find the Baneling, so a great snag there for Astrea, but his natural expansion is still under threat.
Those Mutalisks just running amok in the base. The Roaches have breached the wall. Astrea's going for the counterattack. He realizes pulling home might not work for him. He's actually just going to barrel across the map into Dark's 4th base.
It's mostly Archon. It's a pure Archon force moving across the map. And to be brutally honest here, Pig, besides the Roaches, not a lot deals with these Archons actually very well, but the Disruptors are there to help deal with those Roaches. So this is actually a very difficult army to clean up. That being said, I love Dark's decision-making, going for the pylons, preventing additional warp-ins. That's going to make it so much harder for Astrea to even eventually clean up those Mutas.
Yeah, this is a really good play here by Dark. Disruptor shots going out, but they're not going to find the big hits that he needs. Great dodges, and a recall goes down, but 2 Disruptors and 3 or 4 Archons falling. And remember, his main base is gone, his natural's gone. Astrea back to these 2 bases in the top side. And Dark, he's such a master of engineering his way to victory in this matchup. He's got such a good understanding of what Protoss needs to deal with these Zerg tools, and he denies it at every turn. The Archon's going down, the Mutas with some great trades. And Dark, only 54 workers. Who needs a high worker count if you've always got the right units in the right place?
Absolutely. This is such a tough spot now. It is a very, very big lead right now for Dark. Do not misunderstand that. But it's important to note that Dark is basically on also 3 bases. He does not have a whole lot of income himself. He's going to be reestablishing, though, and he has a superior army. That is where his big advantage lies. It's 30 army supply to 120. Dark should have this in the bag. He just needs to close things out, and Astrea's going to go for one last kind of big Hail Mary play. He's getting up a Dark Shrine. He's going to see what he can do with that, as well as all these Archons to try and just help defend back at home.
Man, this is the most frustrating sort of game to play because you just feel like you never really get to do any serious damage over on the Zerg side of the map. But, you know, he's just in your face.
Yeah.
Remember the Lings? They failed to kill the third like 4 waves, and wave 5 gets it done and overwhelms all the Adepts there. Part of me wonders, you know, I don't know, should Astrea have been making Zealots instead of Adepts just for better bang for buck, raw damage? Does he need extra gateways? The 2-gate opening that Astrea is normally so good at defending everything with, does he need a 3rd or 4th gateway? Because Dark is so unpredictable and he wants to punish what I'm pretty sure he sees as just a ridiculously greedy play from Astrea.
DT is going to be able to draw Dark back a little bit further to his side of the map, and, well, 7 workers is not too shabby for these DTs. Is another DT even going to be able to get out of there alive, but to put it back into perspective, it is still just evening up the worker count, and Dark has actually still been able to get up those fresh bases, and that is going to be the big problem here. On top of the superior army supply, Dark has just better income overall from the higher base count, and he's been able to continue to shut down any of the attempts at re-expanding to new locations.
Yeah.
This is going to be the big kill move here from Dark. He is ready to claim game number 2.
That is an NA of Ravages right there, Fear Dragon. That is a very scary sight for a Protoss player. Oh, he recalls into a rain of biles. The Overseers there, the Dark Templar, can't get anything done. And Dark, just confident as ever, is going to take the 2-1 lead in just a moment.
Well played by your Korean Zerg, Dark. A 2-1 lead in a best of 5, 1 game away from moving on to the next round. He's got to be feeling confident after this. I mean, every single one of these games, Dark has been throwing left punch, right swing, sudden jab, and uppercut. It just feels like he's so hard to get a read on, and Astrea just has to play so on point to handle things. Dark has been very good at being evasive on that.
Yeah, exactly. This is just beautiful play all around. A great back and forth Zerg vs Protoss series, and it's going to continue in just a few minutes when we're back.
Welcome back. We're getting ready to move into game number 4 of this fantastic series so far. We currently have a 2-1 lead for our Korean Zerg player Dark as he faces off against the North American player Astrea after some really just hectic and crazy games. Down in the mud, as Pig likes to say.
Massling into Massling, into Massling, and then some Banelings, and then some more Mass Zergling. And Astrea, that classic low gateway count getting punished there because, you know, he wanted to get the Robo and the Twilight and the third and all off 2 gateways, then at his 5 gateways, and they were finishing just a few seconds too late. You can imagine just some of these fights having backup battery, backup pylon, 1 or 2 more adepts in the choke points, a little bit of a wall off could have been good, but this Muta swap in the end was genius. You know, his tech could have stalled out. I think if he went Broodlords or Hive, you know, with Infestors or Vipers, I think it gives Astrea a chance to round out that army, start doing these big Archon Disruptor pushes. Ravager Bane's not that good anymore. But he said, look, my economy's not that big. I've had a big army. I've always been kind of posturing forward, kept you in your corner. And you're basically in survival mode, you know? Archons, Disruptors, some Zealots, nothing that's good there against the Mutalisks. You can't deal with the mobility. And a great way to finish off the series. Dark, I think, is just so good at detaching from the worker count, right? So many Zergs, they have like a comfort zone. They're like, I need 85 workers or I can't deal with Protoss efficiency. Dark's like, I never let the Protoss be efficient. Why would I ever need to have more workers than them? He's in this series, he's been consistently down on workers versus Astrea, but he's got the right tech, the right attack at the right time. He's hiding his attacks very well, and he finds himself 1 game away from winning it.
Yeah, once upon a time, back in the early days of StarCraft 2, I feel like a Zerg player named Idra basically said, you need to get up to the highest worker count possible. Nesty backed it up for the Korean scene, and ever since then, Korean Zergs and European Zergs, North American Zergs, just all across the board, they all just felt like you just need to get up to that high worker count. And Dark says, no, it's actually fine. There's actually plenty of crazy things you can do as Zerg. Stand out with some of those lower worker counts. And you know what? Turns out no regret was right all along. You can go Ling into Ling into Ling into Ling.
It's true, man. Even without those hatch tech Overlord drops, it's definitely something where a lot of players definitely aren't as adaptive as they need to be. Dark is the true adaptive master. He flows like water around his opponents, and he realizes Protoss gain massive strength as their units get together. An Archon on its own, you can surround that with Zerglings and they destroy it. You add 4 Archons together, those Zerglings get absolutely wiped, right? You add a few Disruptors in there, it counters the Roaches you were talking about at the end of that last game. Dark has a very intimate knowledge of this. He's lost just as many games as the next Zerg to a sick Protoss ball that counters everything he's got. But he gets in there, finds the weak spots, and absolutely smashes through.
Yeah, absolutely. Do I see a Protoss sucks sign right there? I see not everyone cheering for Astrea, but it's great. It's actually really great to see some of those folks also cheering on for Dark and everything. Dark, one of those players, also has said he really does feel like he plays a lot better in front of a crowd, so your guys' cheers help him empower Dark.
Oh, nice.
Protoss.
It's
OP.
OP. Yeah, only Protoss. That's what OP stands for, by the way.
Yeah, I hear that's a great website, Only Protoss.
Yeah, only Protoss.
Only Protoss.
Lots of lasers. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite.
I subscribe to all the lasers I can get on.
Oh, yes, of course. Astrea's Diamond tier. Absolutely highly recommend it.
If Astrea had an Only Protoss website, I would go for it.
Well, we're going to be going on... Well, we're going to be going under, I guess. We're going to be going under in the next game, Fear Dragon. The next map...
Under where, Pig?
Under the sea. Yeah. That's right. The map is Data Sea. It is, of course, on the ocean floor. If you look around, there's fish, there's seaweed, there's a shark somewhere as well. But, of course, this man is fighting for his life right now. He doesn't care about any of that. In the bottom left side, representing Alpha X, fighting for his life, it's Astrea.
And up at the top right-hand side of the map, the blue Zerg player from Dragon Phoenix Gaming needs 1 more game to secure this victory. He is Dark.
Oh, hopping in and off the camera just like that. He is very, very focused, you can see. Very calm. Only real big reaction we got, I think, was that frustration after his Baneling Morph got scouted in game 2. But other than that, he's been pretty chill. He does have to take a 3rd base, though. Astrea really sticking to this disruptive strategy with the early probe blocking that. Nice way to start things off, slow things down for your Zerg opponent. And I do wonder, do we see a return to Stargate play here? Back to the game 1.
Oh, That's going to be a great question. I mean, we do have to remember Data C or Data C, however you want to pronounce it, is a bit of a different map. It is a map where all of your bases are honestly, for the first couple of, I would say like first 4 or so bases, they're very close together, especially compared to a map like Cosmic Sapphire, where your third base can feel really far away from your natural. There is a bitter opportunity to maybe get some defensive setups there, get units in between the bases, so maybe in that last game where Adepts are maybe getting surrounded moving between the bases, they don't. So I wonder if Astrea feels like there's some opportunities to capitalize on that, or if he is going to go into Stargate play like you were talking about, return to game number 1.
Definitely decisions to be made there, and Dark, no doubt, got his eyes open for any opportunity to pull the trigger on some aggression. That being said, if there's ever a time with how this series has gone to just get a really sick 3-base saturation, up 3 bases of workers, have a pretty quick layer, drop a Spire, and just kind of, do we commit to the Mutas? Do we go Mass Roach Ling? Do I just transition into the Infestation Pit? I think, you know, just treading water is going to be a bit more okay, because Astrea's got to be afraid at this point. There's a psychological impact of getting rushed so many times in a row, where he's going to, on a semi-conscious level as well as a conscious level, he's going to be more cautious, and he's probably going to be more focused on building units and safety rather than hitting the probes non-stop.
And it's really crazy. That is how you play a best of, better than just say like a ladder game where it's a best of 1, right? You're playing a best of 5 or a best of 7 or something. Normally, we always like to talk about Zerg players being a bit more reactive. What is the Protoss player going to do on like 2 bases, or if they're going to go for some 3-base timing attack, what is their tech? But throughout this series, just through the way he's been opening, going for these aggressive things, even if Dark decides to play a sort of more laid-back, sat-back style, he's created a system where now Astrea is effectively going to be reacting a little bit to Dark. Dark is now the one sort of setting the pace of the game.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a very quick DT Shrine in Robo, so we will be seeing a DT drop, Archon drop potentially as well. Interested to see if this is like the 2-gate version or if he goes all the way up to 4 gateways. Either way, bit of an old school build, but it definitely has power. Think about how stretched out Dark's base layout is. His third base and his main base, there's a big distance between those. You've got a huge drop angle in the main as well. So I almost feel like if there's a map to go for the old double-double, the 2 Prisms, 4 Archons, this would actually be decent for it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty outdated build. I can't imagine we'll be seeing that, but Astrea is the one guy who could imagine doing it.
Yeah, kind of interesting to also note as we see that Overlord being pushed back, that the Stalker was able to prevent that Overlord from scouting out either the Twilight Council, the Dark Shrine, or even the Robo, really, actually, from being around there. So Dark may eventually get a scout on all of that later on, but he's not going to see it in time for the Dark Shrine actually finishing up. There is already a Spore Crawler made.
Yeah.
And there's a second Spore Crawler being made.
Yeah, these are kind of very quick ones almost for Oracles, but now that he's building 2 more, it does look like he is indeed ready for these Dark Templar. So reading the play quite well. I think he's aware of exactly what could be coming in here.
Yep. It's just going to be about making sure those Spore Crawlers are finished up in the nick of time. That one of those Spore Crawlers a little bit further away from finishing up. Gonna try and snipe off one of the queens. Actually really like that decision. It's gonna prevent the Warp Prism from being sniped, is what I wanted to say. Doesn't actually end up happening. Now, there is going to be a fun little opportunity here for the Dark Templar to at least make use of the space between these bases, since there's no Spore there. But that is not the start Astrea wanted at all.
Oh, huge move for Dark there. Gets one of the Dark Templar for just a few Zerglings. Fantastic play there by him. The Observer and the DT will get to work on the creep. Third base is on the way. Forge, Blink as well for Astrea. It does feel like now, though, Dark has so much freedom with that Prism. Not having to worry about that. He starts his lair, he holds down the drone key, and he's already up 5 workers, adding 4 gases at once, 5 gases. This man wants to build a Spire Fear Dragon. I'm telling you, I was already saying he wants an excuse to play a standard game into big 3-base Muta. If you know your opponent's committed to Archon DT tech, he doesn't have a Stargate, he can't build Phoenix, he does not have any great answers to that. I mean, Blink, it's okay against the Mutalisks, but I do think Dark is going to be looking to just explode into that mid-game tech.
Yeah, I would not doubt it at all. Now, it's going to be very important for Astrea for exactly that kind of reason, to keep this Warp Prism alive, keep these ZTs alive, because these are his eyes out on the map. This is how he is going to be able to potentially get scouting information if there is going to be some Spire that comes up or something along those lines. These are the units that can actually maneuver around the main base and such. There's going to be a melee upgrade coming on out, and Astrea morphing in 2 Archons, bringing us back into just the old school style of things. There's that Spire you're talking about, and it is not in an easy to scout place there, Pig.
Any excuse to go Spire, dude. Dark loves it. Him and Rogue are both experts at pulling the Mutas out, and I mean, this is a great scenario to do it. The Overlord, the Archons are going to get 1 Queen here. 1 Queen getting pulled back, though. Good micro, as always, by Dark. A few Zerglings going down as well. Astrea finding these pickoffs. He's got a cannon going down here or there. Blink +1. The Overseer is going to scout everything, though. So great awareness for Dark. He knows exactly what he's up against.
Now, I will say, in terms of overall preparation or, for unexpected Mutalisks, Astrea has better tools under his belt. He has Blink now finished up. He's been making a lot of Stalkers, so it's not just the Archons this time. He has a slightly more mobile, immediate attack force that can help deal with some of those units. 11 Stalkers is nothing to shake your fist at, but he is going to be trying to get a little bit aggressive here first. Adept's going to be hitting on one side. Blink Stalkers into the main with the Archons there to cover against the Lings. I actually really like this combination.
Very cute. Adept's in the third base, causing a big ruckus. He sees the Spire as well. Very nice play here by Astrea. And I think for him, it's going to be potentially pulling back into turtle mode. He's already forced a lot of Ravagers and Lings out. The Adepts have picked off a couple workers. Not a massive amount, but they've caused a big disruption. Lots of drones being evacuated. His Archon drop going to head towards the main. That's a little risky, mate. He does not want to lose those 2 Archons in that Prism. He's got to get up lots of cannons, batteries, and tons of Stalkers at home to defend the onslaught.
Confirms the Mutas, immediately goes for the recall. The War Prism will take a few hits, but it will manage to survive with most of its hit points intact, which will actually be helpful against Mutas, making those Archons a little bit more mobile to help out with the Stalkers against the Mutas. But the Mutas making their way across the map. Are the Stalkers going to be in position at that third base location while the War Prism make sure there's a defense in the main?
Couple probes going down in the 4th, gets the easy target. No Mutalisks falling just yet. There we go. 1 does get picked off. Archons in the main, Stalkers there at the 4th. The third base a little open right now. Zerglings looking for the weakness. Not finding anything that big just yet. Dark, though, he's going mass Mutalisks, and he's going to start rotating these around, looking for massive damage. So Astrea, he doesn't have Stargates on the way. I mean, how do you defend this? Do you just make Stalkers and position them well? At a certain point, those Mutas are going to be able to stack up and start trading, even with the Stalkers.
Yeah, this is one of those situations that I feel like a lot of pros players like to call the slow death to Mutas, which is you have all the things that you need to technically defend and deflect the Mutas across all your bases eventually, but it's really hard to ever take a new base, and you can't ever actually move across the map and do any kind of damage or counter damage, do any sort of attack yourself. Is really, really tough in these situations. So Astrea needs to find some kind of way to get himself out of that spot. So far, I mean, he's doing a good job on the defense overall, but now the Ling's getting in on top of some of those probes, buying a bit of mining time. Man, I love the usage of the Archons and the War Prism. He's been doing a great job positionally against the Mutas with that.
Yeah, I mean, I love it as well. I've seen stats do it before, and I'll tell you what, there's a real fine line between shooing the opponent away and those Mutas turning around and snapping that War Prism with 2 Archons inside it. So
yeah.
It's a very scary situation where if Astrea is just a little slow at reacting with that, he may end up losing those units. He's making DT Archons down at the third base, getting prepared to defend there. The Mutas, though, a massive Mutas going to go in the main base. There is not enough to defend.
Yep, Prism going to get right-click down before the Archons are eventually just going to get taken care of. Shield Battery cannot keep those units up in time. Now the Ravagers on the bottom right-hand side do all to get taken care of. I wonder almost if there's like a recall or something that just ends up happening over here, because the Stalkers need to get here ASAP. This is where all the tech is. This is where all the pylons are. This is where almost all of the warp gates are.
No energy for recall, though, Feardrag. And, you know, you got to just really pay respect to Dark, because he only showed 13 Mutas for the longest time. Until this wave came in, he banked the rest up across the map, and then they all came in one fell swoop, and it is doing devastating damage. Astrea forced to do what is essentially a big counter all-in. I mean, it's a very scary ball. Mutas can't really fight that, but does he have to? No, he's just going to base trade it.
Oh man, Astrea is going to be in a lot of trouble over here. He has a single DT, which will actually be able to clean up quite a few of these Lings as long as there's no Overseers over there. We're getting into a straight-up base trade. I love that Astrea is also spreading out his units, making sure he can deny mining at all of these bases as soon as possible. Dark also getting supply block nice and early on is going to prevent additional units from coming out for a little bit, especially as some of those Overlords are going to be popping out in front of enemy units. But look at that Mutalisk block. 37 Mutas, Peg. 37 of them.
And he never needs to fight the army. he could just win the base trade. Look at that, Archons on their own, isolated, getting surrounded. The melee Zerglings taking out 3 Archons, a fantastic fight. And Astrea, he doesn't have a Bastion to fall back on. He's got so much money in the bank. But when you lose your production as the very beginning of the base trade, you just can't spend that money. There's nothing he could have done to spend that once those Mutas swooped in and caught him unprepared in the main base. And that is why Mutas are so good on this map, that big main base area where you can swoop in. The DT goes down as well. Dark's still got a couple bases up, 34 drones. And this is, of course, a limited number of buildings. Astrea, with only 1 worker still alive, he's going to try to rebuild a Nexus on the other side of the map. He's got a ton of money, might as well throw a Nexus down and try to win this base trade. He's got a scary force, but losing 3 Archons, it's nowhere near as scary as it was before. And
just the fact that Dark already has the drones moving around the map means that in a base trade situation, Dark can elongate this a lot longer than Astrea can. A couple of Lings already working away at that Nexus, slowing things down. The Muta's working away at all the remaining buildings. This is truly going to be a race to the finish on the final couple of buildings here, but it just seems like Astrea is going to be the one in more trouble. He's been able to keep his probe alive. Somehow, some way, his last remaining probe is remaining with that army and is going to continue throwing up buildings wherever he can.
Yep, Nexus goes down. This pylon will go down, which means there's only 1 assimilator out there right now. Extra pylon does get dropped. He's going to drop a few more buildings. 1,600 minerals in the bank here for Astrea, and he's just dropping buildings as he goes. The Mutas, though, are hunting them down right now. Astrea's moving forwards, but Dark has already evacuated his drones. He's moving those around, and he's got plenty of money, does Astrea. He can keep this kind of, chase around the map going for a bit longer, but as these buildings die, it does cost him.
Yep. A hatchery actually going to be thrown on up there for Dark, so that does use the remainder of his resources. And it seems like Astrea, he's just going to try and hold his ground over here, try and get up a little bit of mining. I can kind of understand where he might be coming from with that. I do wonder, is this actually going to be a valid way to do this? I don't know if he actually has enough to actually hold on to this position, and it's also 1 worker versus 24 right now.
Yeah, I think obviously Dark will be able to rebuild a lot better.
Yeah.
It's a very hard situation though, because you see how quickly you're losing buildings there, and you kind of wonder, if I throw all these minerals away, I definitely can't rebuild. If he could hunt down Dark's buildings, Dark doesn't have the bank, right? That hatchery is the last bit of money, but Dark has extractors all over that north side of the map. If you look at Astrea's vision, he can see through the map. Like, he knows, like, there's extractors everywhere, dude. I didn't finish them off at those bases.
Ooh, trades 1 Muta for 1 Stalker, but there are fewer Stalkers than there are Mutas already picked, so kind of a scary trade to be making right now. The Observer spotted out the location of the hatchery, so Astrea has some information about where he would need to go for if he wants to try and just go for another kind of big counter swing. Nexus will finish up, and I mean, you could actually just get out a 2nd probe or something along those lines. That actually might not be the worst idea. I think he can afford it, and losing your last probe means that you cannot make any more buildings at all.
Yeah, no, if he builds 4 or 5 pylons, he can do that, but I still think, rebuilding, it's a losing battle against the Dark, who's got 23 workers and a 2nd base on the way. Moving forward like this is the correct play. He's going to have to rebuild, though, realizing that Astrea says, look, there's no way I win it unless I play the what seems like a high-risk play. It's actually the best play here. He goes to the hatchery. The drones are all hiding in the top left of the map.
Can he actually corner all these drones? Is this actually all of the drones over here?
There's 1 hatchery building in the top right, but otherwise this is all of the drones indeed.
He's not gonna know about it though. He doesn't know that all the drones were right there, so isn't able to seize that opportunity or pounce on them. And even if he actually tried to just blink too far forward, ahead of the rest of his army, he has to be wary that the Mutas could sweep in from the left-hand side.
Oh, last building gets right there. And he does manage to eliminate him, obviously. Astrea fighting hard, trying to survive, knowing he could win the head-to-head fight. Maybe Dark would misstep and engage into the Archons, but Dark is just too good today, dude. What an expert series, and that is a nightmare to play against for any other Protoss player in this bracket.
Absolutely. Dark, a king of dragging this out into weird and wonky situations, throwing mud into his opponent's eyes and forcing them to actually just play downright dirty.